metal tube, otherwise known as an airplane, with your entire family and traveling away, going a distance, is difficult unless you're traveling to Charleston. Seriously though, it does begin to bring up a question. In this week's parsha, LECHA, in the first verse, Avraham Avinu, Abraham, our patriarch, was told by God to travel, to take his family away with him. Now, according to Maimonides, according to the Rambam, this was the first of his 10 trials, which he overcame and made him the greatest believer ever. According to the Bartanura, however, this was the second of his trials, the first one being when he was willing to be thrown into a fire by Nimrod for not willing to worship his idols. Now, obviously, it was far more difficult for Avraham Avinu to travel in those days than it is for us to do now. He traveled on maybe a horse, a donkey, a camel. But the question remains, why was it that difficult? If we look in the second pasuk, we will understand this question further. In there, God promised Avraham, he said to him, if you go, I will make you into a big nation. And I will bless you. I will make your name great. And you will become a source of blessing. In other words, you'll become prosperous, wealthy, successful. You'll have many children, offspring. Which begs the question, if you get promised by God that if you travel somewhere, yes, it was an unknown place in the case of Avraham, but he was promised with everything. He will be made into a great nation. He will be prosperous. He'll be blessed. He can bless others. Of course you'd do it. What was the great challenge in this? And the answer is as follows. That in fact, all the promises that God gave to Avraham at that time for what will happen if he travels, they didn't make the challenge easier. On the contrary, they made it harder. Because Avraham, when he traveled because God told him so. Not because of those riches, and that was the test. God wanted to see if Abraham, our patriarch, would travel for himself or would travel because of the promises that he's been promised, all those riches and becoming a great nation and becoming successful and being able to bless others. Would that be the reason, or would the reason deep down in his heart be because God told him to? And that's how he overcame this challenge. He left entirely 100% because God told him to, even though he knew it would bring him personal gain. And I'll bring an example. Imagine if I told you that I have a crystal ball and I know what the Powerball numbers are going to be. I want you to go and buy yourself a ticket and you will be able to keep the winnings. But I want you to do it because I told you to and not because you're going to become rich from it. Think about it. The Midrash says Bereshit Rabbah that Maaseh Avot Siman Labanim. What our great grandfathers, the Avot, the patriarchs, what they did is a sign for us, their descendants, their children. And what does that mean? Not only does it mean that we should learn from what they did, but it's probably a topic for another time, but it means that they created the potential inside of our DNA for us to reach the heights or some level of the heights that they reached in their lifetimes. So we have instilled in our DNA this ability for unshakable faith. This unwaverable faith that we have as a nation, which has caused millions of people to give up their lives in the name of Kiddush Hashem for the sake of their religion, is because of this DNA, this potential that is in our DNA, which was given to us by Avraham Avinu, Avraham, our patriarch. Have a great Shabbat.